the self-help scam industry is that your childhood largely determines your adulthood. There is actually very little you can do about it. For example, attachment styles are almost cast in stone. Disregard all the self-styled, self-interested, self-enriching experts online who are laughing all the way to the bank based on nonsense, misinformation, and outright con artistry. The fact is, your adulthood is the almost direct outcome of whatever it is that has happened to you during your childhood.
And this is why the so-called building work on Scots Island's house is not good, not up to code, not adequate, and why they have no executive function and can't get anything together, which is pretty lucky.
And if what you have experienced in your childhood was really, really bad, if you've gone through what is called ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences.
So on their town hall meeting, both Matty and Kelly laughed about being beaten as children and teenagers and having their mouths washed out with soap, hiding in their room, having their door removed so they couldn't hide in their room. So really that is terrorising your children. And they thought that was so good. We'll see why the parents can never be wrong. That they were discussing beating their unborn child. Would it be a belt or a wooden spoon?
Then your adulthood wouldn't look as good as it could have been.
So that's why they're in such a mess.
This is the topic of today's video. How your childhood F's your adulthood. And apropos effing, my name is Sam Vaknin, and I'm the author of Malignant Self-Love, Narcissism Revisited. I'm a former visiting professor of psychology and currently on the faculty of CIAPS, Commonwealth Institute for Advanced Professional Studies.
Now I really recommend you watch the whole app, but we're just going to go to a
all kinds of needs or benefits, access, and the child learns that expressing anger is frowned upon and has very bad outcomes and consequences. So instead, the child internalizes the anger, self-directs the anger. This leads, of course, to depression, anxiety, similar phenomena, but also leads to passive aggression. And
bingo.
Negative affectivity. Negative effects include anger, envy, and so on. When aggression is bottled up, when aggression is not released, when it's not externalized in a socially acceptable way, when aggression is not sublimated, it poisons the individual. It's toxic. And like a chimera, it metamorphosizes and shapeshifts. And these metamorphoses, they are evident and they have a huge effect on adulthood functioning.
That's why he's so sadistic.
To explosive rage attacks. For example, narcissistic rage.
And humiliating.
Undermining, sabotaging others. Hurting animals or people. Cruelty, sadism. They're all expressions of bottled up. Essentially self-destructive, self-directed aggression.
This is why he humiliates her. Don't worry, there'll be a humiliation compilation. We're just getting to the end of him being awful to his friend he's learning off. Caveman Part 2.
The flip side of this coin is the inability to accept compliments. As I told you, love, intimacy, kindness, empathy, compliments, help, suggestion of advice, they're all perceived as intrusive, as humiliating. Why would I need advice? I'm all-knowing. Why would I need help? I'm all-powerful, omnipotent. I don't need help. Why would you give me a compliment? You want something. Why would you love me? You're after my money. You're a gold digger. Why would you, etc. Everything positive is immediately interpreted in terms of ulterior motives, hidden agendas, conspiracy theories. There's a struggle to accept positivity, not only compliments, but positivity. When you were never praised, when you were conditioned to reject yourself and anything positive said about you, it becomes a habit, a lifelong habit. There's a feeling, a bad object, a sense of unworthiness, self-hatred and self-loathing, self-rejection, negative childhood experiences disrupt the formation of an integrated, constellated self in many, many ego functions. And so positivity is rejected because it is closely and intimately associated with pain. Negativity, on the other hand, is perceived as instrumental. Anger, envy obtain results. The more aggressive you are, the more likely you are to succeed.
This is so sad. She really thought she'd be lying in a big lovely bathroom with a big open fire in a big lovely bath. And she's got dirt rash scrabbling around in a Antarctic rubber suit, going down to a canvas hut on a trailer which hasn't got anywhere to bathe but has the only air warm enough to attempt to wash herself. She's heavily pregnant, she's slipped over in there. So this is how she let him chip and chip and chip away at her until that was the what's it called? That fantasy. Oh yeah, she was manifesting the lovely bathroom, but because of her people-pleasing bad introject, from her being beaten by her parents and objectified and belittled by her sister, you can tell from all their duets together that her sister's a revolting little controlling cunt because she was jealous of Kelly. And it's how you get entrained by a lunatic and end up with the conundrum she's in. She's going to be her own midwife on an island off the sea in Canada during the snowy weather. It's just terrifying. I am really worried about her.
People, survivors of ACE, survivors of adverse childhood experiences, they have difficulty setting boundaries. They can't tell when they end and the world begins. In the more extreme end of the spectrum of pathology.
Oh shit, sorry guys.
Narcissists cannot tell the difference between external objects, other people out there, and internal objects, the internal objects that represents these people out there. Narcissists cannot tell the difference. But even in cases where pathological narcissism is not developed, in cases where the child turned adult is technically mentally healthy, more or less, even then, these kind of children, when they grow up, have severe difficulty setting boundaries. They are very likely to struggle with inadequate, unboundary behavior, putting other people's needs before your own, pleasing,
Kelly.
sacrificing happiness, or on the very contrary, infringing and trampling on other people's rights, on social norms.
So it's like double hell.
Contracts and scripts, set healthy boundaries, to take care of yourself and your needs, but equally important for social functioning. And these kind of children turn adults have difficulty with it. And one of the reasons is, as I said, the need for external validation. I mentioned that children who grew up in families that could not provide them could not cater to the need to be seen. These children were not seen within the family. They were not truly noticed and perused and studied and catered to and held and contained and loved. So these children learned that they are invisible. They've never been they're never validated. They've never been praised. And so they lack an inherent sense of self-worth, self-esteem. They seek it from others within a fantasy world. And this is the essence of narcissism. I mentioned all this. But this is to do with the fear or anticipation of rejection. This is
Scotland, anyone?
Is pronounced
Camp Scout?
borderline personality. So the fear of rejection. Unhappy childhoods are essentially a rejection of the child. All the child has experienced is rejection. Other children have experienced unconditional love. Then they've experienced separation from the mother. Then they've experienced individuation. Then they've experienced other people and the difficulties and harshness of reality, which is good. They grow up. Then they started to experience conditional love. They learned that their actions have consequences and outcomes and affect how other people regard them and whether they are loved or not. This is all healthy. But the child who grew up in an ACE family is a child who's been rejected time and again on multiple levels, never allowed to separate, never allowed to individuate, never allowed to be assertive, never allowed to stand up for his or her rights, never allowed to set boundaries, always punished, always mocked, always ridiculed, always humiliated and mortified, always injured. And there's a learned sense. I'm being rejected because I am not good enough. Mommy and daddy are perfect. They're godlike. They're infallible. They never make mistakes. They're never wrong. So if they're rejecting me, it's because something's wrong with me. I'm not good enough. My mother is always a good enough mother. I am not a good enough child. There's a painful experience of rejection and abandonment. You can't build self-confidence on these shaky foundations. Situations which involve potential rejection become triggering and re-traumatizing. And these kind of children would tend to avoid them in adulthood. The whole environment is a crazy-making environment. It's chaotic. It's disorganized. It's unpredictable. It's arbitrary. It's capricious. So the child needs to analyze it all the time. In order to survive, the child needs to understand this crazy-making environment. So these kind of children overthink. Their cognition is much more developed than their emotional capacity. They become cognitive animals. This tendency to overthink is rooted in traumatic childhood. These events, traumatic events, taught the child to anticipate negative experiences. And so the child reacts with anxiety, with stress, with insomnia, with difficulties in decision-making, bedwetting, monopoly of reactions. The child tries to get a hold of
hypervigilance,
what's happening, to get to grips with this kaleidoscopic, nightmarish environment that is embedded in. It's overthinking seems to be the way one's cognition can make sense of the world. And then once you have constructed a theory of the world and a theory of other people's minds, maybe you would be able to predict and avoid adverse consequences. It's not easy to forgive oneself. Children who grow up in hostile, hateful, rejecting, frustrating, and punitive families internalize the bad object, identify with it, because the alternative is to vilify and criticize mother and father, which is unthinkable. It's taboo. This process is known as splitting. My parents are all good, I'm all bad. So they can't forgive themselves.
So that's why she was the Blue Ridge Bandit. You know, she was cast as the tomboy tearaway, and he was his own sort of Daniel Boone dreaming. You know, he just wanted to isolate from his family. He was single for 8 years, didn't he say?
They self-loathing, the self-hatred, which lead to self-trashing and self-harming and self-defeat and self-destructiveness.
It won't be very PC to say, but tattooing is one of the most expensive forms of self-harm. So Kelly's got a few graceful, small though painful inner arm tattoos, and Matt's got something which I still haven't been able to decipher. Maybe the musculature tattooed all over his left arm.
The struggle, every mistake or perceived mistake, every shortcoming, every vulnerability, every weakness are catastrophized, exaggerated, taken out of proportion, just in order to inflict maximum pain on oneself.
So she didn't have a bathroom and now she's got dirt rash. He built a mobile cabin that he was then told to move. It was in the wrong spot and burnt down. And that actually, rather than being a giant fucking actual on fire red flag, is a point of commiseration amongst his cult. It's bonkers.
It's masochism, in effect. This kind of children are masochistic as adults. And the scapegoat child was taught to believe that he can do no right, while most other children were told that many of the things they do are right. This kind of child is informed that everything he does is wrong. So even acts of self-destructiveness and self-harm and self-trashing are perceived as wrong. There's no refuge, there's no sanctuary, there's no respite, there's no way out. Whatever you do, if you conform to social expectations and norms, you behave yourself, if you go through life, the motions of life, as is expected, if you sublimate your aggression and urges and drives, if you're okay, if you're a pillar of society, you'll stay wrong. If you self-destruct and self-harm and self-abuse and self-defeat, of course you're wrong. You can never be right. There's no winning strategy. It's a lose-lose game. And this subconscious, unconscious self-sabotage is the outcome of PTSD. The child wants to destroy itself because the child perceives itself as the source of the frustration, the rejection, the cause, the reason. These feelings of unworthiness and low self-esteem, they reflect a negation of the self. And then when you grow up and you're an adult, the type of instruments at your disposal allow you to really self-destruct. You weaponize your self-hatred and self-loathing. And at the same time, as you're in the throes of rejection, rejecting yourself and hating yourself and loathing yourself, you seek to please all others.
So this is
Behavior
Kelly.
becomes more and more accommodating, but at the same time, more penumbral, more dark. Even as you transition to a dark personality type, even if you
Maddie.
engage in emotional blackmail, Machiavellianism, you do this within the context of people pleasing, terrified of rejection, criticism, become overly attentive to the needs of others, self-sacrificial. You come last, and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of resentment, a lot of anger that you're like that. So you take it out on people. This is known as passive aggression. It's a very common feature, for example, in covert narcissism. This is a very partial overview of the mental health, mental illness outcomes of a bad child. And you should realize that the childhood doesn't have to be really, really bad or egregiously bad. Even small things can have massive consequences. This is the butterfly effect. This is the attractor in chaos theory. Parents should be very, very, very careful. The slightest misbehavior, misconduct, rejection are magnified and amplified infinitely, exponentially in the child's echo chamber of a mind. Child is lost. He's trying to make sense of a new world. You know, child is 2 years old, 3 years old. He doesn't have experience. He cannot decipher and decode what's happening. His brain is working overtime. He's overthinking, overanalyzing, trying to make sense and predict, and creating theories and discarding them and creating new ones. He's busy all the time making sense of his world. You, as parents, should help your children to make sense of the world. And behaviors that are nonsensical, unreasonable, cannot be subject to any rigorous analysis because they're crazy. These kind of behaviors drive your child to disintegrate later in life, to extreme dysfunction. And ultimately the child says, I hate my life.
So in their town hall Camp Scout town hall meeting 3 weeks ago, they said they were beaten. They laughed about being beaten. I think he was teased for his mouth. She was harangued by her sister. She was beaten by her father and had her bedroom door taken off so she couldn't hide there from him. I don't know how much alcohol her mother drank, but she had a big glass in the video I saw her. I managed to see Maddie's parents or siblings, so they're just absent. Basically, these two should be in a mental institute, not preparers. Quote marks preparing for a unassisted home birth on a snowbound island off the coast of Canada. It's like going to be like 2 9-year-olds having a child out there. Anyway, let me proceed. So this is where we were, and I was saying something along the lines of, although he keeps stripping off to show us his body because he is a semantic narcissist, he's a sadistic semantic narcissist. So he's not some sort of Lothario who is a good lover and gentle and at least, late teens, if not grown up with Kelly. He's like a mean 9-year-old who's sort of disgusted by sex. He's had a big laugh upstairs in his bedroom in his renovation series on the bed saying this is where the 3 minutes magic happened, where the baby was conceived. 3 minutes? Great. And what a lover. And it's just terrible. He's belittled her over the year of the so-called renovation, although not much has been done. And he's basically broken down her levels of dignity by humiliating her and being sadistic. And this is in all these favourable cuts on camera, so God knows what's happening. The dogs both look scared and unhappy. Anyway, it's mayhem, dudes, and everyone's giving him a round of applause for it.
It's time to make some fishing poles. Find a couple sticks here, make a few primitive rods, see if we can't catch some supper for tonight.
Can't catch some? It's the double negatives, isn't it? Wouldn't it be just, can we catch some?
People would
It's a sign of negativity.
Store or something. They'd often tie them next to one of these plants so that the mule can nibble on it while they're gone. But today we're going to use them to make fishing poles.
Very small fish, guys.
Yeah, I like a big one. I always usually build a rod too big, but I'm going to do it again.
This one's already dry.
We got our poles. Now comes the best part. Sitting in the shade and making up our fishing rod. I could definitely use the shade. I can feel my skin is slowly burning here.
He should be covered in mud slurry like an elephant.
When I step in there.
He should have his shirt on or cover himself with mud slurry like an elephant. That's what an elephant uses for
So this is the
sunscreen.
primitive fishing line. This is that yucca cordage that we were making last night.
I doubt that's his. I bet that's his friend's. His would look like rope twine, wouldn't it? So there's no conversation possible with him, is there? Because he knows he's sort of challenged. He won't let anyone talk in fear of looking stupid, which sort of makes him look stupid in my mind. He could be just genuinely eager and learn, but
Bunch of them right there.
pompous dumbwits are about the most annoying combo, but he's gone down a treat. Those fucking minnows, they should have a... Sorry, man.
Luckily, with Coles, she can choose to get her groceries delivered today, tonight, or...
This heat is brutal. We're almost there. Halfway. 3/4. 3/4?
So, I don't know if he's carrying any water back to his friend's hut. He should have taken gourds or something, shouldn't have they? He hasn't once offered to help his friend do anything.
Praise the Lord.
So he's got religious delusional disorder. So they've got a little bit of
Time to kick off the boots and
leaves.
settle down and let the good times roll.
And that's it. Didn't carry any water home back for his friend, didn't collect any